Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Fahd Dawood. I talk about real estate, Dubai, internationally, your life and my life, and our path to financial bliss. Look, I'm an investor, an agent, a seller, a buyer of real estate, and I look at investments across the board for myself and my investors. Now, one of the things that smart investors do, now this is just one of the things, is they look at markets where they're going to be in the next 2, 5, 10, 20 years instead of where markets are today. That's how you make the big bucks. That is just one of the things. And that's what I want to talk about to you today. Knowing or trying to understand where the future is headed. Stay tuned. Hit the subscribe button, press the bell icon before we go further. Okay, let's get down to brass tacks. Check this out, okay? One of the things that smart investors do is look at where demand for any particular product or commodity is going to be in the next few months or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years or 20 years down the road. Very simple example I'll give you from my homeland, right? So many of you know that I was born and raised in Dubai. My family's been 4 generations in Dubai, but I'm originally from Pakistan, right? Pakistan being a Muslim country has something called the month of Ramadan. Ramadan, everybody fasts and eats a lot, okay? So essentially speaking, what a lot of farmers or illegal hoarders do is in anticipation for the month of Ramadan, they will hoard staple foods such as onions, potatoes, tomatoes, etc., in anticipation of the price going up and then releasing it into the market right before Ramadan. Now, I'm not condoning, I'm not encouraging this practice, but this is something that happens, right? These are investors with low or smaller sums of capital, and they're anticipating larger demand coming up, and therefore they're hoarding, and then they're going to release it into the market. Pakistan the government's tried to come down on this hoarding market, but they've not been super successful. But that's just an example. You can look around you and you can assess other examples from your day-to-day life, the way the economy is been changing, so on and so forth, okay? Essentially speaking, it's a good way for investors to assess where is demand going to be in the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years by looking at some key indicators in the economy, or by looking at key indicators or key population demographics that are going to push demand in a certain sector, so to speak, or a certain demographic, right? Okay, I'm going to be talking about this one demographic that's the largest demographic in the world right now, and this is the Millennial Generation, okay? Millennials are essentially people who were born from 1981 to 1996, and some people say 1995, 94, 97. Essentially speaking, it's this large group of people who were born in this in this age group who are now at a quarter of the world's population. It's 1.8 billion people who are in this millennial age group, and they're big news. Why are they big news? Now, listen. Before you disagree with me, I'm all for qualified, educated disagreement. And if you say, why are millennials such a big deal? Hear me out, okay? I'm not saying that every single person in that millennial age group of 1.8 billion people is going to act a certain way. But essentially speaking, a large part of that 1.8 billion people are going to direct, influence, have a large role to play in where the world economy goes, and where the world economy goes, so goes real estate and real estate demand, specifically in terms of what the millennials are going to be wanting in terms of end product, means property, right? Do they want mansions, villas, townhouses, apartments, smaller communities where they can interact with each other? I'm going to come to that in a little bit, but just so you can understand how big this group is and how well they're going to actually, not how well, but how realistically they're going to actually influence world demand across the globe, and then whichever country you're living in, the actual real estate demand as well in terms of what kind of product they're looking for. But just so you understand a little bit more about what defines millennials, so it's from 1981 to 1996. They're essentially in the age group of 38 or 39 to approximately 22, 21, right? That's the age group, okay? What defines these people? What are their habits? They're very different from the baby boomers. They're very different from the Gen Z, okay? This group is generally very urbanized. They're city dwellers, okay? And this is a Financial Times report, an FT report. And whether you're looking at millennials in large developed countries, so the US, Canada, UK, European countries, or you're looking at developing nations such as, a few nations in the East or Africa. Generally speaking, the millennials are city dwellers and they like city living, okay? Number two, they're I want to say very, but they're less interested in marriage and having children. And there's another reason I personally believe that they're less interested in marriage and having children. Here's why. If you know the millennial age group, right, 1981 to 1996, when was the last global big recession that took place? It was 2008. Millennials were essentially at that time 25, 26, 27, 28. They had just entered the job market. Okay, well, I wouldn't say just entered, but they were in the job market. And for the last 50 years or 5 decades or so, jobs have been defined with job security, right? You go and work in one place and you die or retire from that place. But while millennials started working, boom, we had the recession hit. And essentially speaking, this was like the millennials who were already in established jobs. They lost jobs. They had to retrain themselves, move into newer jobs. And the ones who were coming out of universities, they had it even more tough. But what it effectively ended up doing is millennials don't need the same kind of job security that their parents needed. Well, okay, maybe they need the job security, but they've actually been able to overcome. And I don't know anybody today who talks about job security, just having a job or having a paycheck at the end of the month or being an entrepreneur. That's been the big thing the last 10 years. Is great for millennials, right? That's where they've been thinking, right? Being flexible and moving around. And then when you look at millennials who were coming into the job market in 2008 or had been in the job market for 3 to 4 years, look at 2020. Right? The last leg of the millennials, from the ones who were born in 1996, they're just about to enter the job market. Okay, they're just about graduating with their bachelors from universities, if they've been there, and they're about to enter the job market. And I think like 2008, 9, 10, we had this extreme uncertainty. In 2020, there's uncertainty for some people. I say embrace it, allow the change to come, embrace it and move forward. But you got to understand, which is why millennials, right, when they don't see job security, like unfortunately, I'm going to say this, people who are educated sometimes equate job security with the ability to get married and have children. Now, I'm not saying this is with everybody, but there's a large proportion of the population that thinks like that, right? So if you don't have job security, sometimes they're less interested in marriage and children. And sometimes not being married and not having children allows you to have more fun with your money as well. Sometimes, right? So these are the kind of people who are in that millennial age group, okay? Lastly, millennials love to work. I'm not going to say love to work. Sorry, I take that back. But they are work people. They like to work. They have to work. Now, when you know all of these things about the millennials, they're urbanized. They're city dwellers. They're less interested in marriage and children. So, what happens with marriage and children? Generally, you move from apartments to cities to suburban areas, right? You move out of the urban. But if you don't have this, then you stay in the urban areas. Millennials like working, and they're not that constrained with job security. They like to switch. They're okay. I'm not going to say they like to, but they're forced to. The millennials who are born in 1981 and close to 35 to 40, they were forced to adapt flexibility with jobs. The ones who are entering the job market today, that's the norm, right? You got to be flexible, okay? Now, coming back to why does this matter when you're investing? Millennials are a large group, 1.8 billion, almost a quarter of the world's population, and they've got huge spending power. They will be the greatest demographic with spending power, and they're going to direct the world economy. When they start directing the world economy, they also start directing, according to their tastes, what they like in terms of real estate assets, where they want to stay, where they want to rent. This is anecdotal, but I don't think a lot of you know this, that in the US after the 2008 crisis, a lot of people didn't jump back onto the bandwagon of home ownership. A lot of people chose to rent, right? Same things I think are going to happen in Dubai. Now, to address the millennial bulge or the millennial population entering the real estate market or the property market, because some of them are going to earn a lot of money and are going to want to invest. Two main developers in Dubai, Emaar and Neshama. Now you got to remember, these are preeminent developers that have large research and development teams, help from consulting companies. They decided to launch two specific products that are targeted to the millennial age group, right? These are, if any of you or many of you or some of you went to university, like I went to university in Toronto, and I go back to my dorm days, right? I stayed 2 years on campus in a dorm. Essentially speaking, what the dorm was, a large playgroup area. You had your room, you went to go and sleep there, but you interacted with the rest of the entire community. You had a common area which was full of games and television and a pantry. You had other things like a games room, a billiards room, collective events for soccer, broom ball. It was like a Canadian thing that it's like ice hockey except played with broomsticks with balls, and all these kind of interactive events that were done to bring the community closer. And essentially what Emaar and Neshama did with Collective and Una was introduce this in the Dubai market. And I don't think investors have really caught onto this to understand that this is a very big opportunity, because each of these buildings have large recreational spaces, nurseries inside, dental clinics, regular general health clinics, libraries, obviously the regular shopping, grocery, but coffee space, etc. And then they've got dedicated managers running the entire building to enhance the experience of the people living there. Look, I'm going to repeat this again. When you're looking at investments, you got to see where the market's going to be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, not where it is today. Millennials are a large group of people, extremely large, right? 1.8 billion. They're big news, big news, right? They're going to be affecting world spending, and that spending patterns going to affect spending across the board: real estate, cars, retail, etc. Millennials are city dwellers. They are urban people. That's going to affect all the townhouses, villas built outskirts of the city. They're less interested in marriage and sometimes children, which means they are happier sometimes in smaller apartments. Most of the time people move to bigger places because they've got more family members. They are work people and they don't need job security. They get up, we're in a global, truly, like I remember the book came out, The Lexus and the Olive Tree, back in 2000, talking about globalization. But I think today we're moving into a completely different era, a really truly globalized world where people are going to crisscross, work remotely because of this whole corona situation. A lot of people are going to start working remotely as a permanent, and they're going to be in a community where they need to be engaged instead of in an apartment block where they're living isolated. And Emaar and Neshama have actually answered this, and you need to actually figure this out. Where do I buy property or real estate that addresses millennials, that helps and attracts them? Because this might be a rising star and you might not want to miss out. Hit me on the comment section, press the subscribe button, press the bell icon. If you got questions, you can always ask me in the comment section. Also reach me by WhatsApp. That's the quickest way. If you want to work one-on-one with me, I do charge a fee for it. So be prepared if you ask for expert, specialized, individual advice. Ciao for now. Catch you on the other side. Bye.